Hi, welcome to Adventure Out There. Stay tuned to see how we mounted these fuel cans with homemade brackets to this four-wheel pop-up camper without drilling any holes into it. The more we've been out overlanding or dispersed camping, we're starting to realize that we're getting further out there, we're getting more comfortable, but we've also had a couple times where we got a little low on gas, lower than we were comfortable with. So I did some research and found what fuel cans I think will work for us, and then I also had to fabricate some mounting brackets to make everything work. And there were definitely some considerations to take in. One thing we always try to be really conscious of is extra weight. So adding fuel is obviously going to add weight, plus the jugs, the fuel jugs, plus the brackets. Luckily for us, we've been hauling around a big, 60 quart Yeti because our fridge was down. And now the fridge is fixed, so now we don't have to use that big, heavy Yeti, and this will kind of take the place of that weight. And then for these trips where we think we might need extra fuel, we will probably be a little more selective on what we bring out anyway. These fuel jugs won't always go with us, so weight's always something to think about, which is why I went with the brackets that I decided on. So some things to consider, or that we had to consider, was how much extra fuel did we feel like we needed to bring. And I think 3 gallons will be sufficient for us. That would give us 35-ish extra miles if we ever felt like we were going to be pushing it. So another thing to consider was the type of fuel jug we were going to use and where we're going to mount it. We don't really have a lot of places on the camper we could mount extra fuel without getting in the way of the door or getting in the way of the steps in case we ever have to access the top of the camper. And I'm also not comfortable with the idea of drilling into our camper. Not saying it won't happen one day with maybe are they called mole rats? But yeah, I'm trying to avoid any kind of drilling into the camper itself. We also had to consider when the fuel jugs are mounted. Are they going to be sticking out? Are they going to potentially get hooked on a tree or a rock and get damaged or ripped off? So those were all things that we really had to think about before we decided on how we were going to do this. And then another thing to consider was overall appearance. We take a lot of pride in our camper. We want it to look good. We think it looks good, and we don't really want to make things too ghetto. I think the trash bag we have hanging off of the back of our camper is about as ghetto as we're willing to get, and that's just a part of it. We don't want to keep stinky weekend old trash in the camper, so the canvas bag hanging off the back that's just always going to be there. So my idea was to figure out a way to make some mounting brackets that look good and don't get in the way, don't stick out, and are secure. Definitely want to make sure everything's secure as we go down these washboard roads or go off-roading. So here we are. For mounting the fuel cans, I decided on using the existing jack stand brackets that came with our camper. They're very sturdy. I mean, when the jacks are on the camper and they're holding up a lot of weight. So those brackets are not going anywhere. And it's nice, they already have holes drilled in them, 3/8-inch holes. So I think those will be the best place to put some hardware to hold these fuel jugs. So after a lot of research, I found these. They are made by Rotopax, which they're well known in the overlanding off-road community. They make quality fuel containers, water containers. And what I like about these is they're 1.5 gallons. This is called a Rollpax. What's nice about these is they come with this hardware, and I got the hardware that fits 1 3/4 inch OD outer diameter tubing, because these are actually made for roll cages on UTVs, side-by-sides, anything with a roll cage. So I bought some on Amazon. I bought some 1 3/4 inch OD aluminum tubing. And then I found these brackets. These are actually made to mount also to a roll bar. And then you have this hole here, 3/8 inch hole, that you can mount extra lighting to. So a lot of the stuff that I found doesn't really go together. It just works together, and these holes work perfect for the brackets for the jack stand brackets. Then I got some, just for looks, aesthetics, I got some rubber caps to go on the end of the aluminum tubing. And I ran out of time this week. We're actually going on a trip, but I plan on painting these black also. I know that when you paint this kind of stuff, you have to take your time and do it right so the paint stays. So I'll do that another day. And then I got my, all my hardware that's gonna go from what I build to the jack brackets on the camper. I even got some washers that have nylon. One side is like a nylon, so it doesn't damage the aluminum when I bolt everything down. So here is my prototype. This is one side. This is everything complete. This is ready to bolt on to the camper itself. Pretty happy with the way it turned out, which we'll see in a minute when it's all bolted up. Nothing is in the way of the door opening, nothing sticking out. Everything's on there pretty securely. I had to mess around with a couple adjustments and a couple things to get it to all work right, but I'm very happy with the way these turned out. And I think they look good. They'll look even better when the tube's painted. Let me just point out, so these right here go into the jack stand brackets. And then right here, these are the brackets that came with the fuel cans themselves. These just unscrew. Get this out of the way. And the fuel can comes right off. Fill up if you need to, but yeah, I think this looks pretty legit. And when I said I had to make some adjustments, so here are the brackets that hold onto the tubing that go onto the camper. They don't agree with the brackets that came with the fuel cans. Fuel can sits in here, and it didn't give me enough space between the can and this to be able to cinch these down. Aluminum gets bound up really easy. These are pretty finicky when you tighten them down. You got to get them in there just right. So the can wasn't sitting in there right, and I was having a hard time tightening these nuts. So what I did, said these brackets they're ready for 1 3/4 inch tubing, and that's because of these nylon inserts. So I actually took one of these out, And I cut up some bicycle inner tube tire, and I made some little shims to replace these, and it actually worked pretty well. I still have a nice tight fit on the tubing, and using the inner tube rubber, it stayed tight. So I'm still technically 1 3/4 inch. And I also used a little bit of Loctite just in case something, nothing shakes loose, but it's still on there pretty secure, and I have no doubt it's going to hold up. I also had to shim with the same inner tube rubber. I shimmed the bracket that came with the fuel can. That looks kind of ghetto, but I can trim that up. But it was just enough to give me enough room so these cans will sit in here, and I don't have trouble tightening these nuts down anymore. Let's go right in. So yeah, not bad for just finding stuff online that worked and coming up with a plan to mount these safely and securely. So we'll go outside and mount these to the camper, and you'll see the finished product. All right, so we're in the garage. As you can see, I've already mounted one fuel can to one side. I'm just gonna go over how I did it real quick with the hardware I got. These are the these are the brackets for the jack stands that I was talking about. I already have the holes in them. So I got some 2-inch long 3/8 bolts. I wanted stainless steel, but the hardware store was out. So for now, I'm just doing regular bolts. I got these washers with a nylon. One side's like a nylon bushing, so I don't scratch up, damage the aluminum, the paint on these brackets. And then I got these little nylon spacers just to give me a little clearance from the steps. And I don't want anything rubbing, I don't want anything touching each other. So pretty easy. After a lot of measuring and adjusting, take your bolt, your washer, stick it through here, put your spacer on. Do the same for the bottom. Just like that. Everything should line up. And then I just have 2 regular washers for the back. And I got some Nylock nuts. Oh, there went my washer. So to help prevent anything from shaking loose on rough roads. All right, so everything's mounted up. You can see, pretty sturdy. I don't think these are going anywhere. I'm really happy with the way they look. There's nothing's touching on the back. You want to come check that out? Nothing's gonna rub, nothing's gonna touch. They're on there pretty solid. Even with the even when having to mess with some rubber shims and kind of messing around with the bushings that came with everything, everything's pretty solid, and very happy with the way this turned out. So, and just in time for us to take a trip to Death Valley. We're going to be off the grid and away from any services for at least 2 days, so we might have to use extra fuel. Hopefully we don't, but it's nice knowing we'll have it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy your adventure out there.